Yes, we are back here on WLTH 1370 AM. That is 92.7 on the FM dial. If you're nasty, word to Janet. Miss Jackson, hope you like Sean DePaul from Jamaica in our musical spotlight. Before we get to this next story, I want to remind you guys, January 24th, 12 to 5 p.m. at the main public library here in Gary, Indiana. Speak or forever hold your peace. We are having a forum for everybody to try to figure out what happened here in Gary and how can we move forward here in the city of Gary. Please come out. We want opinions. We want your thoughts. We want your opinions about how we got in this position and where we are going in the future. Please, we look forward to hearing your thoughts and your suggestions. 12 to 5 p.m., January the 24th. That is a Saturday, 2026, here in Gary, Indiana. It's 7:43 in the p.m. here on January the 9th, 2026. So I got to get to this next story because, at 8 o'clock, Dr. Williams comes out with the 2x4 and kicks me out personally. And Lord knows we don't want that. If you've been listening to the first few stories of this show, the A block and the B block, whether it was ICE terrorism in the first segment or talking about our government, the criminality of our government flouting international law, to our government literally allowing people to openly commit fraud and pardoning them if they have the right political connections. A lot of people ask, how did we get to this place in America? How did we get to this place where our government is so openly corrupt and so brazen? How did we get to this point where our media is owned by a few people and just lies to us constantly? How do you get to this place? Well, a new study may be revealing at least part of the reason we are in the position that we're in here in the United States. It is the National Literacy Institute has found that over 54% of Americans, approximately 134 million people, read below a 6th grade level. Think about that. 130 million adults in this country read below a 6th grade level. About 54% of U.S. adults read below a 6th grade level. That is incredible. Meaning that they lack strong reading and comprehension skills beyond basic text. This figure comes from an assessment of adults' literacy proficiency and has been cited in multiple analyses of literacy data. The statistic typically refers to adults between the ages of 16 and 74 and equates to roughly 130 million Americans with literacy skills below a 6th grade level. That is incredible. About 21% of Americans are considered functionally illiterate. That is 1/5 of Americans are considered functionally illiterate, meaning they struggle with even very basic reading tasks, roughly equivalent to below a 5th grade level. Wow. Despite these figures, the average American's reading ability is often described around a 7th and 8th grade level. Oh, well, that's way better. Meaning the median skill level might be slightly higher than the statistic implies. Well, instead of reading at a 6th grade level, we read at a 7th grade level. Now, what does reading below a 6th grade level mean? The phrasing comes from how literacy is measured in large assessments like the Program for the International Assessment of Adult Competencies, or the PIAAC, and other national literacy evaluations. Reading levels are defined by proficiency scales that assess comprehension, ability to interpret text, use of information, etc. Below 6th grade level indicates difficulty with tasks such as understanding complex sentences, critiquing text, or following detailed instructions, not just basic reading of individual words. Now, why is any of this important? Low literacy levels are associated with significant social and economic challenges, such as economic impact. Low literacy has been linked to reduced employment opportunities and productivity losses. Health outcomes. Many adults with low literacy also struggle with health literacy, understanding medical information and navigating health systems. Civic engagement in daily life. Reading difficulties can affect participation in civic life, comprehension of the news, and managing everyday tasks like filling out forms. Now, how did this happen? I think a good question is, how did this happen? Number one, education has shifted away from deep reading. Over the last 30 to 40 years, schools increasingly have emphasized standardized testing. No child left behind. There you go, George W. Bush. Great legacy you got there. Teaching to the test. Short excerpts instead of full books. Multiple choice comprehension instead of written analysis. This is something that is important. Every day I write in a journal, every day, 3 pages, every single day. It is important to be able to write your ideas, write your thoughts, and to be able to elaborate your words and your thoughts that builds on comprehension. These things are important, even in terms of doing things like preventing Alzheimer's and dementia and sort of mental decline into your 7th and 8th decades of life. It is important to read and to write every day, people. Also, screen culture has changed how brains process text. And I've talked about the evils of social media and smartphones. We've seen not only intelligence scores go down since smartphones have been introduced around 2010, but things like suicide rates, depression, anxiety in young people has gone up, and it almost coincides perfectly with smartphones being in everybody's pocket. Smartphones, social media, and algorithm-driven content favors short, emotionally charged snippets. It discourages long linear reading and rewards skimming over reflection. Neuroscience shows heavy use of screens will weaken your attention span, your working memory, your deep comprehension. And so you need these things. You need your attention span. You need your working memory and deep comprehension. So, in short, most Americans can read signs. Thank God. You can read a stop sign and a yield sign and text and simple instructions. But many Americans struggle with legal documents, news articles, medical information, contracts, policy explanations. And so, where did this start? I argue that it goes all the way back to the 1960s, the genesis of a lot of the worst things that have happened in our society. Ronald Reagan, who was the governor of California in the 1960s, figured out that the anti-Vietnam sentiment was centered on college campuses here in America, that the center of the anti-war movements were on all of the campuses. And so he and his aides at that point in California decided we have to make college more unaffordable. We have to make education more prohibited, because smart people don't want to go fighting wars. And smart people are less vulnerable to war propaganda. And so at that point, the California public college system was basically free. It was basically free to go to college in California. And so what he did was he made it cost prohibitive to go to college. And not only him, the right wing in this country spent decades attacking teachers' unions, attacking teachers, attacking schools, public schools, defunding schools. Spent years buying up our media. People like Rupert Murdoch started Fox. I remember when Fox first came on. I was a very small child at the time when The Simpsons first came on and all those other things. I had no idea at the time that Rupert Murdoch was some crazed right-wing billionaire or anything, but Rupert Murdoch is some Australian heavily invested in buying up media in Australia, in America, in Great Britain, dumbing down the audience. That's why for many years, if you notice, Fox had the reputation of being down and dirty and sleazy and just sort of about titillation. Ronald Reagan got rid of the fairness doctrine in the 80s that was designed to make it impossible to just get on TV and lie, or get on radio and lie. Americans had to have a full explanation of issues because we had the fairness doctrine from both sides of the story. And the media was compelled to be more even-handed and fair. Ronald Reagan gets rid of that in the 1970s. And to show you that it's not a one-party party, Bill Clinton in the 90s signs the Telecommunications Act of 1996, which completely undid what Franklin Roosevelt signed in the 1930s, the Telecommunications Act of 1934. The reason that was important was because it limited media ownership. You could not have major media conglomerates from the 1930s up until the 1990s. If you owned a newspaper, you couldn't own a TV station. If you owned a TV station, you couldn't own a radio station, or it put limits on media ownership. And so you didn't get these propaganda factories like you see with Fox News. And so everything in our media and in our culture for the last 30, 40, 50 years has been about dumbing down the American public. And when they gave us smartphones, it was like giving crack to poor and desperate people in the 80s. It's been destructive. And you go to my YouTube page, Scott Cannon Radio, you can watch the segment I did on how destructive smartphones have been. But ultimately, all of this has been done to dumb down the American public because dumb people do not resist. As the great George Carlin said, and I love to play this clip, but I'm running out of time and I got to get out of here. They want obedient workers. Just obedient workers. That's it. They want people who are just smart enough to know how to run the machines and to do what they're told. They want people who are dumb enough to support endless wars, to support shipping jobs overseas, to support driving down wages for American workers, who are dumb enough to blame their fellow American citizens for what Elon Musk or what Donald Trump or Joe Biden or whatever politicians are in charge of doing. You're more mad at your neighbor than you are at the elites. That's why they dumbed us all down. But that's why it's important to fight back, to read books, to educate yourself, to put the smartphone down and read paper books, sometimes at least. And stay woke, the original form of woke. with your eyes open. Oh man, I only got 3 minutes left. Okay, I got to get out of here, folks.